Number 10, which are public hearings. The first public hearing is adopt a resolution approving transfer of $50,000 from the Community Development Block Grant to Business Revolving Loan Account to the CDBG Housing Revolving Loan Account for the Dixon Veterans Home located at 261 and 261 and a half South Jefferson Street. Mr. Heckey.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. We are bringing forth an item for financing and local match funds for a Veterans Administration grant to allow a nonprofit to create a group home at a location in the downtown Dixon area, 261 and 261 and a half South Jefferson Street. There are two separate single-family homes on one lot there. And it's a group home concept that would have 12 beds. Just a little context in terms of what's going on with the Veterans Administration. They've in 2007, they did a survey of the Northern California area, Martinez, Oakland, and Sacramento regions of the Veterans Administration, and they identified 7,800 homeless veterans in that region. And within that number, the number of chronically homeless vets, 2,854. So what's been happening is not only have we had a history of homeless and disabled vets from the Vietnam era, but now after several years of the Iraq War, we have an increasing problem with veterans' homelessness and disability. There are nonprofit organizations in Solano County that do deal with develop transitional housing facilities, and Fairfield Community Action Group is who's the applicant tonight is one. They're centered in Fairfield, but they're looking at establishing their first Dixon facility. They've been operating a couple of Fairfield facilities. The reason we have to have a public hearing under CDBG is to transfer money out of our business loan account into our housing rehab loan account. The way that we operate our CDBG funds is we have two distinct revolving loan funds, one for small business and one for housing. So what we have built up funds within the business side of the operation and don't have quite enough funding for this project within the housing side, so we're asking you to okay a transfer out of the business side into the housing side. In addition to that, on a separate item under redevelopment is an additional loan request, and that'll come to you on item 13 later this evening. But just the applicant will be here to talk about the nature of the operation, any concerns about how Fairfield CAC operates group homes will be addressed by the applicant. I just wanted to describe to you the overall financing structure again. On page 3 of the memo where I talk about the sources of funding, the Veterans Administration grant, which has been secured by Fairfield CAC, is for $325,000. The seller of the property has agreed to carry back a note, a long-term note for $20,000. The RDA loan, which we'll bring to you in item 13, would be $110,000, and then the CDBG or federal money that we're talking about in this public hearing would be $50,000. The overall total project cost is $505,000. That would include some minor rehabilitation once they're in there to set it up for group home facility, to make sure that there's proper public safety for the occupancy load, and to, I believe, do some minor handicap accessibility improvements there. The applicant can address more specifically the details of that. Staff is proposing, per the loan committee action of October 31st, that there be a deferral aspect to the loan, that they give to allow them to operate for a period of time before they have to pay the loan back. Your options are to endorse the loan committee recommendations in action, or to recommend or discuss changes to the terms and conditions of the loan agreements, or you can actually vote to deny the loans and overrule the loan committee if you should so choose. But I do want to remind that the action is not the conditional use permit, which has already been issued for the property. That was a planning commission action, and that is in force. So it has been approved for zoning and a conditional use permit. Our action tonight is to transfer the funds and fund the financing to allow the implementation of the
So this is really just a fiscal issue. It's not to whether it should happen or it
It's
shouldn't
already,
happen. That's
it's already
been
passed
decided.
public hearing and a long process
Okay,
for its actual use permit. So I
All
do
right,
want
any
to clarify
questions?
that.
Any questions of Mark?
Yes, I'd like to know what the purpose of the business account is, the business loan account.
Its primary purpose is for low-interest loans for small businesses within the city of Dixon. They can be anywhere within the jurisdiction, but it provides for funding for startup capital, for funding for equipment, and for, in some cases, for tenant improvements.
Do we have any idea what the balance in the account is?
The balance in the account is slightly over $200,000 right now.
And are there any projects that would need this money in the pipeline from small business?
There's been one discussion with one business that was potentially in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. They have not pursued that application. They have the application but have not filed.
Okay, thank you.
What's the deferral that you were speaking
The
of?
deferral aspect would be
What's the
that
amount of time?
the amount of time that we're recommending is
20 years.
20 years.
20 years, okay.
And then from
Then they'd have
and
to
then
pay
over
it
the
off
10
in the
years,
final.
120 payments of
Yeah,
$13.50 per
they'd have
month.
to pay off the balance over the next 10 years or refinance and pay the loan off to the city.
And how is the money allocated for that? I mean, does it come out of the sales tax to go into that fund?
No, the source of the funds for the CDBG funding is repayment by, we've had the program for about 15 years, and we have a repayment stream from the businesses that have been funded, and they pay into a revolving loan fund.
How long?
So it's actually coming from operating businesses that have had loans over time for the CDBG. On the redevelopment side, which is separate item number 13, that's from local property tax increment from the redevelopment area.
Any other questions before we have the applicant come forward? Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.